been bringing you the last couple of days. The key to downtown is that when these people came to protest in our city, either from out of town or residents, they would park in the open lots around the city. Let's check in with Chris Williams. He's on Chestnut Street and he's got an eye view high above Chestnut. Chris?
And Doug, I just want to explain how I've got this on because even from 6th and Jefferson, where you might have some tear gas deployed every once in a while, the wind blows that stuff through the canyons here between the big buildings, and we'll get a little bit of a taste of it, and your eyes start to water, your nose starts to burn. But I want to take a look over here at these parking lots because about this time yesterday, these lots were packed. There is not a single car in the lots right now here on Armory. As we look at Chestnut, we've had a random car every once in a while come down the street. We have seen some people, like one or two together, mill about, go down towards Jefferson or walking away. This is really unusual, Doug. If you remember what it was like out here last night or even the night before where there were cars out here, last night was pretty crazy out here about this time. But if we look over here towards 5th Street, we're looking off to the east, you really don't see much. As we come back towards downtown and then up into the sky, we don't know if we can see, you can see the police helicopters are making a little wider, a little bit slower loops around some of the areas of downtown than they were before this curfew went into place. We have seen a couple of National Guard trucks, Humvees, drive down Chestnut tonight. We've also heard a couple of police drive by in some areas with bullhorns telling people who are on the sidewalk that the curfew is now in effect and just go home. We've not seen any arrests here. But Doug, you saw what these parking lots looked like last night, and to look like this tonight, what a stark contrast.
Chris, it's such a big change. People were parking, they were carrying backpacks. Yeah. I saw people carrying portable chairs. It almost looked like another kind of major event downtown.
Well, and one thing to point out, we know that the crowds are much smaller, and any damage tonight so far must be smaller. Before 9 o'clock tonight, we did see a guy look like he was riding on the side of a building. He was wearing all black, had a black helmet on, and had black, something looked like padding on his arms. But we haven't seen anybody breaking out windows from our vantage point. We haven't seen any of the widespread tagging from this area. Even as we look down on some of the buildings here in the neighborhood that do have plywood up on the windows, covering up the destruction from last night, trying to prevent any destruction tonight. You know, for people who've covered hurricanes or lived in hurricane areas, it kind of resembles people preparing for a hurricane with all this plywood up on the windows.
All right, thank you very much, Chris. Again, the police presence is big downtown, along with Louisville Metro Police and other departments, including 350 members of the National Guard. And their tactics already have changed. Tear gas now being fired even in the area of a smaller group, much smaller group in Jefferson Square tonight. It took police a while before they were starting to fire the tear gas the last couple of nights. So that has changed. We do want to let you know that Metro Police are protecting some malls in the community. Metro Police blocking all of the entrances to the Mall St. Matthews in eastern Jefferson County, and about several Metro Police cars are also at Oxmoor Center as we continue to show you our live aerial pictures. So who is in the city protesting tonight after a very violent night last night where we saw looting and we saw places like the Omni Hotel, the CVS store downtown looted, all their windows broken out. Our crews have been interviewing some of the protesters who came down to the city just a few hours ago, and here's what they told us.
We're here being peaceful, and they're getting ready to shoot tear gas at us. Kind of like how it was yesterday. It's just not cool at all, because how can people be peaceful if we're just sitting here and we're just standing here saying no justice, no peace, and you're shooting gas at us?
Officer, please, I can't breathe. Officer, please, I can't breathe.
Putting 20 bullets in somebody's apartment with no warning is not acceptable. It's not my fight, but I'm here using my privilege to be part of something greater.
It is a 6 feet social distance. So why are you getting on me?
I want them to understand, and this is from the bottom of my heart, and I could care less what all of the rebels out there do and the vigilantes do. I care, but I don't care much about their feelings because they're taking our message to the wrong level.
I'm here to hand people supplies that they need. I'm here to be a body that's present for this cause, and I want to make America a better place.
Police!
I'm I'm here to just let everyone know people just make mistakes. Things wrong. I'm not justifying for the police because, once again, there's other things going on in other states with the police that does not relate to Louisville, Kentucky. But this particular situation is getting handled. And we have to understand that it can get handled without violence, without destruction. We don't gotta hurt nobody.
It got really ugly. Like, I was walking up, they were breaking into liquor stores, breaking into hotels, breaking into so many different things around the community, and it was pretty devastating to see. But again, I can understand why there may be some anger here.
That's the most devastating thing that's happened. I'm belittling no one. I've seen, we was over there with the Black Lives Matter. That took the whole entire intention off of the Breonna thing. All the people came from out of town. They brought a couple people with them and everything like that, and they got to preaching just Black Lives Matter. Black lives do matter. All lives matter. But they focusing on one thing. They putting themselves in a box. How can you just say one type of breed matters? Everybody matters. Breonna Taylor mattered here.
Some of the people we talked to today in downtown Louisville just a few hours ago as they insist on peaceful protesting, as they were telling us. And I'll read the tweet from Sadiqua Reynolds, the Louisville Urban League president, who sent this out today, also giving the perspective of the message of why there were peaceful protests at the beginning. This is about everything that led to the deaths of Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd in Minnesota, and Amy Cooper, the woman calling the police on a black man in the park in New York City. Some of the protesters telling us that's why they came to Louisville. And of course, as we've seen from Louisville Mayor Greg Fisher, he said a large number of people, as he's calling them anarchists, came in from out of town and started the trouble, as we saw last night with so much damage around the city. Shay McAllister is once again in the area where police have already fired tear gas within just the last few minutes. Shay, what's the latest there at near 6th and Jefferson?
So Doug, again, it's a moment of calm right now, but just a few minutes ago we were with you when police and protesters clashed. It was the first time we've seen that kind of clash tonight. And it was interesting because a couple hours before that, it was very quiet downtown. We discussed maybe about 100 people. So what happened was the protesters were lined up right here, right where you see the sheriff's deputies standing right now, and about a block up towards Jefferson is where police were standing arm in arm in their riot gear. And it was like that for about 10 minutes, but you could tell it wasn't going to stay that way. We started hearing the chants, we started hearing some of the things that signify when it's about to get a little bit more chaotic, and then protesters did start throwing water bottles, which we've seen all across the last few days. We then started noticing the little smoke bombs, not tear gas at first, but then alas, tear gas. And even though we were moved backwards and we moved back quick, we still did get hit with it. So that was what just happened. It did move the protesters from this area. They dispersed in all different directions, and so did police, almost following them out into the different directions they were going. And this scene has been relatively clear since then. I will say we saw a number of people taken into custody. We don't know if they were arrested, but they were put with their hands behind their back. We saw some officers with zip ties in their backpacks that we're assuming would have been for this use. And I'm looking up here to see, and I see a lot of officers. I don't see any protesters up here. So I'm wondering if they're staging on this line, waiting it out. I told you last night, Doug, we're always watching the LMPD helicopter and the spotlight, because that helicopter is always on a big group or a potential next problem area, and it looks like it's about 2 blocks down from us, closer to 6th and Main, is about where the spotlight is pointing. So I think that might be where we're seeing some gathering. Right here though, a little bit of calm just for a moment. Doug?
Well, Shay, let's talk about the when you went to 6th and Jefferson. You know, we just showed the scene down here toward Chestnut of these wide open parking lots. Did you notice a difference right there in the zone of everything, where on cars, the number of people parked around your area?
Absolutely, Doug. I mean, I would say out of the 3 nights so far, tonight has been the most calm. It's been different because we saw some of those police tactics a little bit earlier in the night. We saw some tear gas a little bit earlier in the night. We saw the riot gear come out a little bit earlier in the night. But the crowds never grew to the size that we saw on that Monday night at the most rowdy point when they were shaking the prisoner transport van. And it was absolutely nothing like last night. The parking lots here are clear. Cars are not parked on the street like they were last night. And people are hard to find. Last night I told you there was people on every single street, and it was hard to know when you were about to be in the middle of something because both police and protesters were coming together and tensions and clashing so quickly.
Shay, Louisville Mayor Greg Fisher just now tweeting out a video message from Black Lives Matter. We're going to try to listen to that video message here in a minute, calling for peaceful protests across Louisville. The mayor thanking them for advocating for safe protests, including the leader, Chanel Helm of Louisville. She is in that video message. Let's talk about the National Guard presence once again, Shay, and the fact that you saw tear gas fired so early in the night. I mean, we're talking about just before 10 o'clock, much different from the last few nights.
Yes, and we saw it even earlier than that, but you're right, it was a lot earlier. I will say there's a little bit more, complacency isn't the right word, but people now I feel like are a little bit more used to it. They warn each other when it starts. It's not as much of a mass chaos and panic mode. It's a little bit more, okay, let's all just start moving this way and getting away from it. So just in those 3 days it's changed. But you mentioned this message of peaceful protests, and tonight, with just a few exceptions, has been very peaceful, Doug.
Now, judging by the manpower of police you see on the streets and the size of the crowd you've seen, and Jesse Cohen's estimating maybe 200 people heading your way from the Highlands right now, do you believe that the police presence far exceeds the amount of protesters we have in the city tonight?
From my view, yes. Obviously, I don't have a scientific count here, but just what I'm seeing, and especially downtown near Jefferson Square Park, there was one point where we were seeing dozens and dozens of officers, you know, groups of 75 on all corners, and absolutely no protesters. So we definitely saw a different number. And of course, last night, it was flipped the other way. So I don't know if that's the National Guard presence coming in, other officers, but there's a large presence. And the National Guard, I'll say, we see them, you know, right at the moment when tensions start to strike, they pull up right away. And as soon as things start to simmer, they're out of here. So you can see even in the last few minutes, take a look, it's cleared out this way, Doug. Surely they're moving up, like I said, just a few streets up to Main. You can see the police helicopter with the spotlight is pointing down, and that's been our guiding light as to an area of activity over the last couple of days. I'd imagine that's where the National Guard went just now, but right here, really very calm. Doug?
Well, Shay, all encouraging signs. We want to throw a dose of skepticism in this, though, right now, because we know what we've seen the past two nights were so severe in Louisville. Shay, hang tight. You might want to listen to this. We've now turned around that video. Here's the message sent out by Black Lives Matter calling for peaceful protests in Louisville, sent out by the mayor just seconds ago.
Announcing any unplanned, unorganized, impromptu protests in response to the murders of Breonna Taylor, Jesse Stringfield, the shooting of Cedric Benford here in Louisville, Deshaun Reed and Miguel Rose in Indianapolis, Ahmaud Arbery and George Floyd in Minneapolis.
People certainly have the right to protest, but we want those protests to be effective and safe.
52 years ago, this week, our city saw the Parkland disturbances where our people were protesting over police terrorism, and we saw 2 teens get killed, and we do not want history to repeat itself. So our demands remain, and they remain in solidarity.
Denouncing any unplanned, unorganized, impromptu protest.
That's the short video sent out, retweeted by Louisville Mayor Greg Fisher moments ago. Shay, you were listening to that. What do you think of that message comparing, because this all started on Thursday night when Chanel Helm did hold that small rally, which started off peaceful on the steps of the Hall of Justice Thursday night, a Black Lives Matter rally.
Well, Doug, we know that this was much bigger than what Chanel Helm was anticipating. You'll remember I ran into her last night very briefly, and when I asked her, what do you think about this? What are you expecting? She said, I don't know. I said, what about these people? She said, I don't know these people. So we know that what happened yesterday was absolutely beyond her expectations, and yesterday was so much different than even Thursday night. You could tell it was different groups of people, a much larger group of people. And a lot of what we're hearing tonight, Doug, is people from Louisville saying, we want our message to be protected. We want it to be clear that this is justice for Breonna Taylor. Our message is simple, and we don't need violence and we don't need destruction to make it. People who live here in Louisville telling us they don't want to see that. And what happened last night was not their plan and not what they wanted. Tonight, trying to keep it peaceful and trying to keep it focused on Breonna Taylor.
And we've just learned too, Shay, Louisville Mayor Greg Fisher going to have a news conference and a briefing tonight at 10:30, 15 minutes from now. We did not see the mayor until 1:30 in the morning after all night, last night, that siege throughout the city. And so that's another good, encouraging sign. So stay here with WHAS 11. We will bring you Louisville Mayor Greg Fisher's comments here live in just a few minutes. Now let's go back to Jessie Cohen. As you remember, she just left the Highlands of Louisville and is walking down Broadway back toward downtown. You're getting very close there, Jessie.
Yeah, Doug, we have made it a long way from where we originally were. We are now approaching the downtown area, and as you can see, the crowd has only gotten bigger. They just turned this corner here, so I'm not sure if you can see just how many people there are. But like I said earlier, there are hundreds. Moments ago, we did hear a loud bang. We're not too sure what that was, but we are getting closer to some of the chaos. Something I did want to point out was that the reason that this crowd told me they are continuing to move is that police cannot create a barrier if they are not staying in one place. So it seems like this particular group that started in the Highlands is planning to continue to move all night. We'll see if that changes, but for now, we have been walking for about 40 minutes, and they are not slowing down, Doug.
All right, Jessie, thank you very much. A few minutes ago, Jessie was in the Highlands and she talked to some of the protesters there. Here's what they told us.
Because we need justice for Breonna. Cops can't keep killing people and do nothing about it just because they have a badge.
Same. We need justice for this. This can't keep happening.
Yesterday was peaceful until the cops started throwing tear gas. We were peaceful. There was a couple bad apples, but there's nothing we could do about that. We were trying to be peaceful. There was no need for the tear gas last night. That's what caused the riots.
No vandalism going on, no destruction. That downtown is crazy.
The locals know about the Highlands, and they want to protect the local businesses.
So far, the reports we have, exactly that happened. There was no violence in the Highlands as they marched up and down Bardstown, parts of Bardstown Road, and then also a section of Cherokee Parkway. Don't forget, the Louisville mayor's curfew is in effect. It started at 9 o'clock tonight and is in effect until 6:30 a.m. tomorrow, and that is for the next 2 nights, going to be through this weekend, as the city does remain on alert for any more possible protests, including after tonight. We did have callers calling our newsroom asking us what the details are of this curfew, how it works. We haven't had a curfew in Louisville probably since the 1974 tornado. I can remember that curfew was called, and I remember the National Guard in here at that time, a very frightening time at that moment. This video here, by the way, was taken just before nightfall of police moving into their place. Kentucky State Police still here in Louisville. We had hundreds of members of the state police coming to Louisville yesterday. They were here last night. And we also have 350 members of the Kentucky National Guard. Can I leave my home? The question that the mayor answers here in his curfew Q&A. His response, everyone should remain in their residences and out of common areas during the curfew hours. Again, 9 p.m. tonight until 6:30 in the morning. What happens if I go out? Well, you can be cited for a curfew violation, and then you will be asked to return to your home. Are there exceptions? Exceptions are for commuting to places of work, houses of worship for services, tomorrow of course being Sunday, and anyone involved in an action medically necessary to protect themselves, a friend or a family member. These are the curfew rules as released by the mayor. Can my business be open? Yes, but you should not have any customers after 9 p.m. as everyone should remain in their residences and out of common areas during curfew hours. So right now here at this moment, we are 10 minutes away from listening to Mayor Greg Fisher's first update of the night. Last night, the police department gave us a few updates through the evening, and the mayor's first words came at 1:30 in the morning after a very devastating night for our downtown area and then parts of the city as well. Let's check back in with Shay McAllister as Jesse Cohen's group is continuing to move closer to downtown Louisville. Excuse me, I'm going to go back to Jesse Cohen, who continues to walk toward downtown. Jesse?
Hey Doug, yeah, we are continuing to walk. We're behind this group right now who keeps making turns in different directions. As you can see right now, we're on the corner of Muhammad Ali and Preston. We're gonna wait for this traffic to go by. But the other interesting thing that we keep seeing tonight is a large group of cars. We're gonna wait for traffic to go, but a large group of cars that are going with the protesters, people standing on roofs. It's safe for us to go, guys. Sitting on roofs, sitting out of their cars with their posters, kind of gliding along with those protesters to make moves for them. And now they're helping make their way downtown. This is kind of the tail end of that group. We're right here down by University Hospital. But I'm not exactly sure what their end destination is. Like I mentioned earlier, the people who I talked to, and I talked to quite a few of them, said tonight's tactic for this Highlands group is to keep moving, which is something that we haven't seen in the last 2 nights. Also, this group seems a lot more peaceful. It's almost as if they seem much more similar to the group that we saw on Thursday, Doug. But right now, like I said, we are continuing to walk. We are not too sure where our destination is, but we're gonna keep following this crowd.
Okay, Jesse, thank you very much. Going back to the destruction, we were able to put a list together as it all came out this morning from overnight, including the looting, the CVS at 4th and Ali. That drugstore actually had its windows, almost all of them broken out. The crowd went in there and rushed the store, knocked most of the store shelves over, and those windows were wide open through most of this afternoon. I walked over there at 3 o'clock today, and they were just being boarded up as that store had been attended by waiting for people to come by with the plywood, and people were setting up sawhorses on the sidewalks all through downtown today. It sounded like a major construction zone as plywood is being put up all through the town. The Eddie Merlot's restaurant, which has actually been closed since the COVID-19 outbreak began around March 16th, it has not been open, had its windows broken out, and liquor was looted out of that restaurant. That's at 4th and Ali. The Heine Brothers coffee shop across the way there, all of the windows in that lower floor of that skyscraper, which is all glass, including a large attorney firm around the corner from it, those windows shattered out. And then the Omni Hotel, which is of course being protected tonight by police, was looted of liquor, and many windows were shattered there. I went over to the Omni to look at it today, and they were not only covering windows that were gone, but putting up an enforcement of plywood all around it, as have many buildings in downtown Louisville, including here at the WHAS building. As you remember last night, we had to leave the area for a while as our windows were shattered here. And also the Henry Clay, the big Henry Clay there at 3rd and Chestnut is wrapped in plywood today on every street side from Chestnut down to 3rd. And spray paint and graffiti is everywhere. You're looking at a live picture now. This is video, excuse me, from a little while ago, but this is our rooftop. This is our rooftop shot where Chris Williams is right now standing by. So let's go to Chris and find out what we're exactly seeing and what's been happening up there. Chris?
Doug, it's really quiet, and we want to look over here to the east, and these parking lots were packed yesterday about this time. They have been empty nearly all the night. We saw one car parked over there. We've seen a handful of people walking up and down the street from time to time. You see a lady walking down there, down the street now, and we have seen a couple of cars on Chestnut, but it is really quiet. And as we come back to the left, over my left shoulder, I'm sorry, your right, my left, down this street, this is Armory, and at times we saw the police down at Armory and Liberty, then Armory and Ali. There were crowds that would gather down in that intersection, and then they would dissipate. We've also seen some crowds down at 6th and Ali, and then 6th and Jefferson from our vantage point on the other side of the building. And again, things would dissipate, excuse me, and from time to time through the canyons of downtown, you do get a, excuse me, you get a little tickle in your throat there, Doug, because you can pick up some of the tear gas or remnants of some of the tear gas that have been going on in other places. None of it has come anywhere close to Chestnut tonight. And so it's interesting how people who are living in downtown, maybe downtown loft apartments or downtown apartments, you may outside your windows have from time to time smell tear gas tonight, even if things weren't happening near you. As we look over off to my left, your right, in that direction towards the Omni, we don't even see the police helicopters in that area now. In fact, man, Dennis is running our camera here. I'm going to do something really hard on you. We're going to move back to the right, and you can see a police helicopter off in the distance. Doug, I'm sorry if it doesn't look really great up here as we're kind of shifting on the fly as we look to see any signs of things that we may have seen the last couple of nights. But as you've been pointing out, it is much, much more quiet than it has been in the last couple of nights here on the streets of Louisville and downtown. And Doug, we have seen a couple of police from time to time go down the street and they use their megaphone, say the curfew's now in place. It's time to go home. Well, we haven't seen anyone anyone get arrested out here tonight. Very, very quiet compared to the way it's been the last couple of nights in this part of downtown, Doug.
All right, Chris, we'll be back with you. 2 blocks north of you is Shay McAllister. Let's go back to the 6th and Jefferson area, Jefferson Square. Shay?
Hey, Doug, so checking back in here, we're still seeing quiet, but a new change. Nothing was happening just a few moments ago. Now police heading back. We've seen a couple of the SWAT vehicles, police cruisers have gone by, a small group of officers has passed, and looking down to Market, you can see another line of LMPD officers in their riot gear heading back this way. Have not seen any protesters over here, but of course police probably know something that we don't, and they're coming back this way, preparing for what could be next. Still quiet, but definitely more police presence here in the last couple of minutes. And it sounds like we're hearing some of those pepper balls being shot and some screaming.
Well, Shay,
guys, I wonder if we need to.
You need to move?
Yeah, Doug, we're here.
Do you need to move? Are you okay?
I think we're just going to make sure they know that we're media.
Okay.
Because they are shooting at people who are coming toward them, but we do have our camera and our light up, so. So we're keeping a close eye on it.
While we're waiting, you and I can talk about this because we wondered how long police would let this go on last night. The mayor was even asked a question at 1:30 in the morning. How come the police were standing there and these stores were being looted and the looters weren't confronted? One of the reasons is that the officers do not want to break the line. Once they break their line, can make them vulnerable. That's one of the reasons. But Shay, they let things go a lot longer the last 2 nights. It seems tonight that they have little tolerance for that and are moving forward on anybody at a moment's notice.
Definitely, they're kind of taking that instant control. A couple of officers up here in front walking toward us, leaving the rest of them back on Market Street. This does look like the officers that had those pepper ball guns. So we're good on that front, I think, here, Doug. We just wanted to make sure they knew that we were media, just so there's no confusion, but I think we're okay. Looks like the other officers are now actually heading up Market Street down towards 7th. And you know, I always tell you, we watch that LMPD copter. It's right above us right now. Heading up 6th Street. That's where the SWAT vehicle is too. You know, we're seeing a little bit of presence around Jefferson Square Park. I'm almost wondering, Doug, if they're expecting that here in the next, 30 minutes to an hour, that could become the hot spot that we know it's been over the last 3 days.
That's right, and a lot of times we can judge the location of the protesters by where the police helicopters are. Thank you very much, Shay. We do want to check in with Jesse one more time as what is really unfolding here on a night that we thought where more violence would unfold is we have now the return, we hope, of possibly peaceful protesters at the moment. That seems to be the case, but once again, things got really out of hand as it got much later the last 2 nights. So let's check in with Jessie Cohen as she continues to make her way toward downtown. Jessie, your location?
Well, Doug, we are right outside Norton's Children's Hospital, and let me tell you, this group is moving fast. They are moving like they have a mission, but we're not really sure where that is. We have traveled all the way from the Highlands, and this group has only grown, but it almost seems like they've dispersed a little bit and gone in different directions of different streets. We're kind of with the tail end with some of the original people that we've tried to stick with to stay with this group, and we are currently heading towards you guys near Chestnut right now. It seems like we're making our way down to that 2nd Street area right near the Omni. Once again, we're not really sure where they're going or what their purpose is, but earlier we did hear from multiple people that they want to keep moving so that they're not stopped by police. There are a lot of people out here tonight with posters and who are chanting. We did see a few people who had spray cans and were spraying different things in the Highlands. Nothing too aggressive. We saw a few Black Lives Matter. We saw a few no justice, no peace, but we didn't see anything too crazy other than that, Doug.
Okay, Jesse, this morning started with protests all across Louisville. The police reported that in one of their first briefings, and those protests were peaceful. They were in different spots around Louisville. Earlier today, I spotted one that was focusing on stop mass evictions. And they had about 25 cars in a line just driving through the Highlands, honking and honking as they were going through. The mayor got up this morning and he toured the damage in downtown Louisville, and then he had a news conference along with his assistant police chief describing their new tactics for the evening. And then Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear sent out his message about the Kentucky National Guard. There you see a man in custody. This is from earlier tonight in that video. By the way, Louisville Mayor Greg Fisher is expected to give his first briefing at the night, was expected to be so at 10:30. This is the 2nd Street Bridge. This is an interesting video that we brought you during our 6:30 news tonight. That was right in front of the KFC Yum Center. The protesters, which seemed to be a larger number at this time before it got dark, were on Main Street, and they had blocked the 2nd Street Bridge. The 2nd Street Bridge was closed at one time. One of the reports we are trying to get nailed down for you is just how many arrests have been made over the last 2 days. Those numbers have been fluctuating. Our early indication we're hearing is that there haven't been many arrests. Of course, we do know that 7 people were shot, and we actually saw those gunshots go off on the air as we were on the air here Thursday night. And then Friday night, last night, turned into what it did. An out-of-control crowd estimated at the thousands moving through downtown and then up into the Highlands, where they remained peaceful and walked mostly with their hands up in the air in the Highlands. Those protests were still going on in minor form when we went off the air at 1:30 in the morning last night. And then driving out of the city, I noticed damage all up and down Broadway and even out off the eastern end as you were leaving the city. This morning we learned from the mayor that there was looting not only at Jefferson Mall but at stores in West Louisville and stores in other places of the community in Okolona. The National Guard is now coming into view of our Shay McAllister, so let's check back in with her as Shay, we're waiting for the mayor any moment now of his first briefing.
Yeah, Doug, okay, we wanted to make sure you saw this. You've been asking about the National Guard, and here it is. This makes me think that we could be seeing something here at Jefferson Square Park in the next couple of minutes, because when the National Guard shows up, they're coming with purpose. I will tell you, I've never seen anybody actually get out of the vehicles. We always just see them pull up and then they go to the next spot. But there's been dozens and dozens of officers heading this way, a couple of big groups just past us, reminding us to stay safe. And we're keeping a close eye on it. We just were talking about how there's some potential here. Jefferson Square Park has been the gathering point every single day of the last couple of protests. And even when people scatter, sometimes they have been coming back there. On Thursday, you remember, Jefferson Square Park was the center of it the entire night. So we're always watching it, and it looks like that's where police are heading right now.
You still smelling tear gas down there, Shay?
No, we're not. Thankfully, that last round got us pretty good. So that's passed, and we're thankful for that.
No percussion
but
grenades
Doug, we have
either.
a little bit of a routine now. We know how to we know how to come back from it pretty quickly now. But no, we haven't heard anything like that. The last kind of explosion or loud noises that we were hearing were those pepper guns when we were on with you just a couple of minutes ago. And that was quick. It was about a block down from us and then it stopped. Nothing like that here in the last couple of minutes at least.
All right, well, we're hoping and of course praying that this continues. This trend continues through the night, but we do want to throw a heavy dose of skepticism out there on that just because we had so many people in the city last night and throughout the day today, the preparations, there was real concern. In fact, the Kentucky governor saying in his message, which is still out there posted, that their intelligence, they had learned that groups were coming to town to injure as many people as they could who were going to be on the streets tonight. That was from the governor in his statement earlier today. Let's check back in with Jesse Cohen, who is once again following a group that started in the Highlands, and this has been a peaceful protest. Is that still the case, Jesse?
It seems like it's still the case. We are now back on Broadway, and we did just hear a loud boom, much closer than the last one that we heard. And we just saw a few cop cars rush over to the area just behind me on 2nd Street. So now I want to show you that we are behind this group. Philip's going to show you in front of us that we are approaching a much busier area right now. It's hard to tell because there are some people going in different directions, but it still seems to be extremely, I'm sorry, I can't think of the word, extremely calm, cool, and collected. But what we're hearing in the distance is we're hearing so many honking, we're hearing more police sirens, and we did just hear that loud bang, so we're not exactly sure what we are walking towards right now. I'd say there are more cars than there were when we started on Bardstown Road. I want to show you an example of what I was talking about a little bit earlier, of people like right here sitting out in their car windows. This is what we've been seeing all night, either people sitting like this or sitting on their roofs with different signs. It looks like the group that we're with is making a left here on 3rd Street back towards Germantown, so I guess they're not going into the downtown area. It's hard to tell really what their goal is here tonight, Doug, or if they really do have an end destination, but we've been walking for almost an hour now and we're just following along.
So you're now, you believe, heading toward Germantown? I know you were on that part of Broadway where you could easily make it into Germantown.
Well, we could either have made a right and gone towards that Jefferson area, or we could have made a left and head towards the Shelby Park, Germantown area, which we're walking down right now. We're on 3rd Street, right off of Broadway. So it's really hard to tell where all these people are going, or if this is the entire group that we started out with. Like I said, we've tried to stick with the same people that we recognize from the Highlands, and we've been kind of sticking right near them. So it's hard to tell where we're going or what their main goal is, but it seems like they are trying to chant, they are trying to honk their horns, and they don't want anybody to stop them.
Many cities around America, of course, more than 30 cities right now are also having similar protests, some of them more violent tonight. And Louisville Mayor Greg Fisher, we are on the standby for him right now. We are watching that feed coming out of City Hall. And when you watch the mayor's news conference, as he does it through video, he'll ask for questions and then there will be silent. That's because many times those questions are popping up in front of him and that, so it gets a little awkward. You're wondering what happened to the audio. Well, that's what you're going to see just getting ready to come up. Talking about the Louisville Metro Police Department and the mix now of Kentucky State Police. We'll get to that in a second. Let's go live to the mayor.
We changed tactics today after last night's noticeably more anarchic activity. That's why I initiated a 9 p.m. to 6:30 a.m. curfew for tonight and for tomorrow night, and asked Governor Beshear for assistance from the Kentucky National Guard, who are now assisting LMPD and other law enforcement in an effort to prevent the kind of violence and destruction that we unfortunately saw on Thursday and Friday nights, the same type of violence and destruction we're seeing in approximately 30 cities across America. Things are still evolving, but so far tonight, this is what we are seeing. I want to emphasize that on a night like tonight, the situation is very fluid and could change very quickly. The size of the crowd tonight is significantly smaller and easier to manage. I want to say thank you to those who peacefully demonstrated today and respected the need for the curfew. You have helped your city. At this point, LMPD has arrested around 10 people who disregarded orders to disperse. As officers worked to move the crowd and cause them to disperse, some tear gas was deployed. There remain two major groups of demonstrators as of now, one in the Bardstown Road, Baxter Road corridor, and one in the central area of downtown. There are a few other small groups. Like last night, we're seeing weapons, long guns, sticks, and flammable materials. Officers were able to seize some of those materials. We will continue to monitor the situation and take appropriate steps as needed. I want to thank Governor Beshear for our partnership and for sending the National Guard to our city. I also want to thank the Kentucky State Police and the Kentucky Emergency Management for their assistance. Thanks to all of you who have abided by the curfew. It's 10:30 p.m. right now, and I'm gratified to say that the majority of people are staying home as we asked, and they kept their kids home as well. This has all made a huge difference. I want to thank all those who came out tonight and today and protested peacefully, expressing your concerns about the tragic death of Breonna Taylor and the state of America today. As my colleague, Atlanta Mayor Bottoms, said today, a protest has a purpose. For those of you that protested peacefully with a purpose, I say thank you very, very much. I also want to emphasize that I hear the frustration and the anger and understand the high emotions. And my hope is that we can work together, like many of us have in the past, along with our council, our churches, and others, to channel those emotions into daily, honest, constructive conversations that lead to change. As I said, things on the streets are still evolving, and we'll be reevaluating where we are on this tomorrow morning. I urge everyone to continue to abide by the curfew tomorrow. And let's show the country how a city works together to create a city of peace, a city of equity, and a city of justice, a city that we all deserve. So I pray for the relative peace that we've seen so far tonight, and I ask that you all do the same. Thank you. And I'll take a few questions at this point. First question from Laura. Did you consider addressing protesters on the street before curfew tonight, and why did you decide not to? I guess, Laura, on that, I don't know if you're saying, did we consider asking them to disperse before curfew? First, we're very gratified that so many people respected the curfew. What we're trying to do right now is just as peacefully as possible disperse the few remaining protesters that there are, so we're just making judgment calls on the best way to do that. From Laura, why were police destroying protesters' supplies, including water and milk, earlier this evening? Interspersed with that water and milk were other materials. There were mason jars full of flammable material, other materials that could not be identified yet that could have been used to be harmful to other protesters, also been used to be harmful to law enforcement. So the best decision for the safety of everybody was to remove those materials. Okay, why did police start pushing protesters back using tear gas, smoke, and holding lines before the curfew began at 9? In a situation where it looked like it was going to be taking a turn for the worse, our police used their judgment, and that includes some of the tear gas that we've seen deployed tonight. How many people have been cited and or sent home after the curfew went into effect? And what parts of the city are people being cited? As I've mentioned, about 10 people have been arrested. We've been very pleased with the way people have peacefully protested. And as they've asked to go home, most people have. There's a few people still that are out there doing it. With the two groups, both downtown and along Bardstown-Baxter Road corridor, we've been trying to apply the same techniques in both areas. Tear gas has been deployed downtown, but not at Bardstown. What was the different protesters' actions? The Bardstown Road, Baxter Road corridor protesters it was a different environment in terms of the feeling of the activity from the protesters. That type of activity by the police was determined not to be warranted there. So all these situations are a little bit different, and the police are using their judgment accordingly. Do addresses so far confirm your claim that most of the bad actors are coming from out of town? As I said, there's just been about 10 arrests so far. I mean, there's a noticeable difference in the crowd tonight, in the tone so far. We need to be humble to that. This could all change very quickly as well. But since the crowds are smaller, there's just less activity going on in terms of looting and such. So I don't know what the origin is of the 10 people or so that have been arrested so far. Let's see, question here. Police have now tear gassed 2 black members of the Kentucky General Assembly, Representative Booker and Scott. Mayor, do you think that does a good job dispelling the notion that LMPD harms the black community with impunity? Look, anybody that was affected by tear gas, if they were peacefully protesting, that's something that we don't want to have take place. I've heard the reports of Representative Scott, but not Representative Booker. We apologize if any of this took place that was not following the procedures that our police officers trained to and they're proud to uphold. Why are police firing pepper balls and tear gas without a warning? We just don't have any confirmation of pepper balls being used without warning right now, so I can't comment on that because I don't know. Okay, WDRB reporters said on their live feed a few minutes ago that police told them they're not allowed to be out right now. According to your office, the curfew does not apply to the working press. Please address this. Or police attempting to restrict press? We'll notify all of our police officers through all of our means. They have been notified already. The press can definitely be out. This is essential work. We want the media to be fully operational and safe. It's important that the media is out there. So I'm sorry if there's any confusion on that. We'll try to clear that up immediately. Okay, with that, I say thank you to the media. You guys are doing a great job covering all this, so stay safe. Let's all just hope the situation we have right now holds throughout the rest of the evening. Again, I want to thank the people of Louisville for contributing to this being a relatively safe night so far, for peacefully protesting for change. Continue to commit to being your partner to work toward that change on what we can do here locally and advocate at the state and federal level for more change. Okay, God bless. Thank you.
Mayor, confirming what we have been noticing as well since we have been checking in with you with live reports at 9 p.m. I thought one of the most interesting things he had to say is true as we go through the night. We have all noticed a much big difference in the downtown, wide open parking lots, not as many people, but we all need to be humbled by that fact. At the moment, the crowd could change at a moment's notice, could grow quickly, and that's the one thing we're going to be carrying through here as we're going to take a break, and then we'll be right on with the night team at 11 o'clock here from WHAS 11 News in just 10 minutes, a full round of our reports and where the protesters who have been leaving the Highlands are at the moment. So stay here with us, just a few moments away.
Obviously, people with a very wide array of feelings, but everyone here, whatever they're feeling it very strongly, Terry.
Great point. That's a great point. Thank you very much, Trevor Ault. On the streets of the city of New York, we go across the country with the protest in Los Angeles now. We're going to pick up our local station's coverage of events there right now. This is KABC in Los Angeles covering what's happening there.
Smashing the windows. LAPD right now appears to be preoccupied with the trash fire over on Fairfax, where there had to be at least 100 officers that were preparing to make an arrest. Looks like, let's go back to that, go back to the safe, because I have a feeling they're all running there now, and they've been able to pry open the safe that I believe...
Oh my goodness.
Or an ATM. It's an ATM.
Oh, ATM.
It's an ATM.
It's coming out of that nail spa,
Well,
the nail salon.
Hopefully there's not a lot of cash in there since they haven't been in business for a while. And it would serve them right. I hope it's empty.
Yeah, good luck.
You know, some of these businesses have managed to board up, but obviously, you know, who would have expected this if you left your business a couple months ago? Yeah. You know, this is the last thing you probably thought of.
Exactly. That guy took some chrome from the inside the store. He thinks that he's going to break a ATM with that?
Yeah, good. Yeah, luck. I mean,
not the brightest
the
bulbs.
ATM's going to survive, but look at the business. The business is trashed. Nail salons
shattered.
Yeah.
That door was just glass, apparently. Look at that. Right. It is just a mess.
Yeah, they're just using hammers. They're taking those hammers. Here, look at these people in cars, too. Look at, I mean, these people in these minivans here are encouraging. Yeah, they're waving and encouraging all of this. So you have people driving into this protest. I have a hard time believing that many of these people are just driving through despite everything going on a Saturday afternoon, considering the state of affairs here. It just doesn't make any sense to me. So you have to wonder if people are now driving in from other parts of town to participate in this violence.
Well, go ahead. Oh, go ahead. Well, you see, it's sad because you don't see any of these people with signs about George Floyd. They're obviously
well,
not.
this is
They're just taking advantage of the situation.
Yeah, this is obviously taking a turn that is much larger and far from George Floyd's cause and the tragic, senseless death in Minnesota. This is taking on a whole new life of its own, and these are not the protesters that were flooding Penn Pacific Park this morning.
No signs there. It's all people. These guys are just looting, and they're going to break through.
All right, we are going back to Matt Gutman, who is in another section of Los Angeles in West Hollywood. Matt?
Hey, Terry, pretty significant looting happening. You know, we talked about it earlier. We saw one store, then a couple more. That's a Target back there, and you can see them hauling out a big screen TV. Looks like a 65-inch TV. Someone behind them walking out with arms full of jeans. We've seen, you can see the hangers all over the floor here, over the ground. Shoe boxes. There's a Saks Fifth Avenue just down the street that has been busted open. People, yes, you can say something if you'd like.
Oh, hey, how you guys doing? What's up? So I was at the protest all the whole and I stood in the front.
It's about not sending a message. That's what it is. No one's broke.
I was in front and
our own money.
I wanted to know
this
why.
is the streets of LA.
Watch out.
Remember, we're sending a message, baby.
There are many messages being sent right now. This woman, I'm going to give her a chance to talk. I'm going to give her a chance. But what we're going to do is throw back to Terry, and I'm going to talk to you off camera right now.
All right, Matt Gutman there. You feel the passion on the streets of Los Angeles and so many other cities. At the same time, there is crime and violence happening. As Trevor Ault reminded us, it is a complex situation that cannot be painted with a broad brush. These are our fellow citizens, some of them behaving in perfect consistency with the highest ideals of our nation, and some of them doing the opposite. It is a bad night in the country right now, and I want to go to Martha Raddatz, who has covered a lot of countries in a lot of trouble. Our country's in trouble tonight, Martha.
And Tara, I just want to say we've got now 14 states who want the National Guard there, plus the District of Columbia. And I think in the coming days, you'll have to see what kind of difference this makes. It takes an enormous amount of discipline to do this kind of law enforcement, to stop looting. The National Guard will be limited. We'll have to keep our eye on President Trump to see whether he calls in the active duty military. The active duty military has not been called in since 1992 to control riots. We heard President Trump say they would unleash the unlimited power of our military. I have no idea what he's talking about there because there are limited powers, clearly, of our military. But the National Guard is the next step, and we'll see what the overall plan for the nation is, Terry.
All right. Martha, thank you very much for that. And I want to go to Pierre Thomas now, also one of our veteran reporters and who has seen a lot of things on the streets in his life as well. And Pierre, you know, where do we go from here? Martha was just talking about the job the National Guard has going forward. There's an immediate problem in getting some kind of stability and order restored to the cities of our country.
You're absolutely right, Terry. I'm thinking in this moment about where this all starts. Where it started with is Mr. Floyd and the way that he died and the circumstances of his death and those images that are now seared in the mind of this country. People of all races, young, black, white, there's pretty much unison on the fact that that man should not have died that way, notwithstanding whatever prosecution will come. That we can see the country is in unison about. That said, we're also seeing how complicated this place we call America is. We are dealing with violence. We're dealing with indiscriminate acts of looting. We're dealing with all this tonight. And it strikes me that right now the country is looking for leadership. And I dare say it's a time for empathy, Terry, where people in every corner have to put themselves in the shoes of the other and think about how the police, many of whom do a great job every day, and then the people who have been discriminated against, made to feel like less than, who are now saying enough. That's where we are, Terry.
And that is where we are because of those issues which date back so long, really 400 years now. Pierre, thank you very much. I want to go to Byron Pitts once more, but I do want to say that the Associated Press has done a tally, and they say that 1,400 people have been arrested in 17 cities in protests over the past several days in America. And really, Byron, I just want to go to you. One of the ways of experiencing tonight is that this is a heartbreaking night for America.
Terry, you're absolutely right. It is heartbreaking. Good and decent people can agree and disagree about many things, but I think all good and decent people agree that lawlessness is not right. Looting is not right. I think about, Terry, you and I have had this conversation off and off air as people of faith. And so on nights like this, forgive me, I turn to Scripture. I'm mindful of what it says in the book of Ecclesiastes. There's a time for all seasons. And certainly this is a season for America. But our nation has always shown that we are better on the backside of such nights like this. And Terry, if I may, I'd like to close with the words of Dr. King again, in one of his famous speeches from the 1960s, where he said about anger and frustration and sadness. And someone in the congregation asked him, "Preacher, how long will this go on?" And Dr. King said, "How long? Not long. Because the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice." A tough night, an important night, perhaps even a necessary night. But we are a nation of good and decent people. We will move forward from this day, not in the next 24 hours perhaps, but I think people are engaged in a way that, Terry, I would dare say in our lifetime, they've not been engaged before. And so we'll get through this. We will.
All right, a ray of hope there from Byron Pitts, our colleague at Nightline. And there's no question that one of the things we are dealing with is the oldest problem in America. At the founding of the country made a promise to itself that all are created equal. It's a promise that was betrayed at its founding in many ways, even while that revolution advanced the cause around the world. But it is a problem that we are still dealing with. And tonight is a night in that history, a night where across the country, as Martha Raddatz pointed out, 14, now 15 states have activated or plan to activate the National Guard to keep order, where 1,400 people have been arrested around the country, where cities are are in flames, where looting is gone, but where more than anything the voices of thousands of Americans have been lifted in anguish and anger and righteous indignation at the death of 46-year-old George Floyd in Minneapolis, a white policeman's knee on this black man's neck. That is, in its microcosm, really the story of the country in some ways, and it is a night to reckon with that. A sad night, a heartbreaking night. We're going to return you to local programming right now, which on the East Coast means your local news. You can follow all the events on ABC News Live. We will monitor it and break into the network when appropriate. Good Morning America will have full coverage, and This Week with George Stephanopoulos will also be covering these events tonight. City after city across the country, coast to coast, north to south, erupting in protest about the oldest problem in America. I'm Terry Moran here in ABC News Washington Bureau. Thank you for watching us. Stay safe.
And hello, everybody, here as we begin our night team report at 11 o'clock. I'm Doug Proffitt. Glad to be here with you on an evening where at the moment we can report peaceful protests in Louisville, significantly smaller. That is the top headline here at 11 o'clock than we have seen the past few days. As the mayor just told us in a live news conference that you saw here on WHAS 11 News, the situation is still very fluid. The crowd could change quickly, according to the mayor, but at this moment, all signs are pointing to a significantly smaller crowd. There are only 2 protest locations at the moment. They have been in downtown Louisville and also in the Highlands of Louisville. So let's first kick off our team coverage here tonight as the protests have spread throughout the community in just 2 locations, according to that last update. We have team coverage with Jesse Cohen, who's on the move with that group that's left the Highlands, and Shay McAllister. Let's begin with Jesse Cohen on their current location. Jesse?
Hey, Doug. Well, we are on the move. We've been on the move all night. We're kind of with that last group that formed in the Highlands. You can see it kind of right behind me here. Philip is going to show you. But the group has gotten smaller. What we've really noticed is that they've really moved to their vehicles. I want to show you a prime example of what we've seen all night. Like right here in these cars, we see people that are sitting in their windows. And this group is very excited here, but what I want to show you right here, what we're seeing is people have been sitting in their windows and like this car here, driving around, protesting peacefully, but they've really taken to their cars. So while the way they've been protesting has been different, it almost feels like the style has been too, because last night we saw a lot of different things, and right now we're seeing more peaceful protests. One more thing I want to point out is this group, I would say, started off in the hundreds, and now it's dispersed to just a few. Just a few. So I'm not really sure if those other crews have moved on to other locations, but now we are back heading downtown. So we'll let you know where we're at in just a little bit, but Shay has been downtown all night. Shay, have you been seeing what we're seeing similar, or what are the protests looking like by you?
Well, Jesse, where it is loud and chaotic near you, I'm going to tell you it's the exact opposite here. We are in Jefferson Square Park, right at 6th and Jefferson, and this has been the hot spot, the heart of these protests over the last 3 days. Right now, though, it's calm. Actually, take a look. You're going to see a couple dozen LMPD officers sitting, resting, calm. We see some smiles, maybe a bit of relief, because what could have been another violent, difficult night in Louisville has not turned into that. And I think for these guys and for everyone, that is a really good sign. We know that it's not over yet, and we know that there is still time and things could change. But right now, very calm right here. And this has been a bit of like the heart of all of this. We're keeping a close eye on it. A couple minutes ago, we saw 75 KSP officers heading out of downtown. LMPD officers didn't even bat an eye. I always tell you guys I'm listening and looking for the LMPD helicopter in the spotlight, and it seems it's not around us right now. It might be heading near Jesse down there.
Well, Shay?
But from our standpoint, here in the heart of downtown, Doug, calm.
Well, Shay, the mayor even said it a few moments ago. We changed tactics today. Let's talk about how we saw those tactics changed. Very aggressive, very early on tonight.
Yeah, and you know, I think the crowd, it started earlier. We saw police in riot gear earlier. As soon as there was some tension, the mayor said it was based off of protesters' actions when they actually went ahead and used tear gas. And so they saw some things that they thought warranted that earlier than we had the last couple of days. But the crowd never grew large. The crowd never got to that point where it had the past 2 nights where things really got out of control. It always was able to disperse. It always ended up back to a very calm place tonight, Doug.
Greg Fisher actually thanking the protesters twice in his news conference for being peaceful tonight. The peaceful protests, again, it's been that way since the beginning this morning. Several protests breaking out around Louisville, but all remaining peaceful. The Kentucky National Guard with a huge presence of 350 members in Louisville tonight, along with KSP and Metro Police. And again, the plan did appear much different than the past 2 nights that we've been showing you here. It showed on the streets tonight as the reinforcements from the Guard joined LMPD and the other state troopers. Our political editor, Chris Williams, has been talking to Greg Fisher earlier today, and he also listened to that news conference moments ago. Chris, you're above Chestnut Street tonight.
Yeah, I want to show you what it looks like down off to our right, to our east. You can see that the parking lots are empty. It was not like that the last couple of nights, especially last night. And while we've seen some traffic on Chestnut, if you hear what we hear now, you're hearing the state police helicopter. Shay said that she said they were not over her. We are on the outside of whatever circle they are making here at Armory and Chestnut. It's a slow, large circle, much larger than it was earlier when there were concentrated groups of people in downtown, and those people were surrounded by police, and we do know that there were some arrests made. The mayor in his news conference had said that while things were quieter tonight, he did acknowledge that they can change quickly. He said that it's still evolving throughout the night and that they'll reevaluate tomorrow, but he urged everybody to abide by the curfew, and judging by our eyes and ears, it seems as though most people have. He tried to press people to pray for Louisville to be an example of a city, to create a city of peace, equity, and justice. But the Guard being here tonight with the Kentucky State Police and LMPD gave them the reinforcements they needed that the governor or the mayor told me earlier this afternoon that they really needed if they were going to consider making more arrests than they had in recent nights. And here is what he said about the arrests that were made tonight.
At this point, LMPD has arrested around 10 people who disregarded orders to disperse. As officers worked to move the crowd and cause them to disperse, some tear gas was deployed.
Yet again tonight, we have not seen Chief Conrad, and earlier in the day, I asked the mayor where Chief Conrad was. He said that the chief had been in the command post for so much time the last few days that he's maybe getting 2 hours of rest tonight, that the chief, even though he's retiring at the end of next month, is still in charge and very involved in strategizing as they deal with the situation as it continues to unfold. Reporting live in downtown Louisville, Chris Williams, WHAS 11 News.
All right, Chris, thank you very much. As once again, the mayor told us a few minutes ago, using the words relative peace in the community as he is remaining cautious. He also reported that they have confiscated weapons tonight, long guns, flammable material, and bats from the protesters. That's just tonight. Despite all the damage done to Louisville last night, downtown area especially, very severe. There were very few arrests, as you heard the mayor just reporting now, a total of 10. Focus investigative reporter John Charlton's been looking into why that happened and more on the information on what you've been investigating. John?
Well, Doug, LMPD told us that there were a total of 6 protest-related arrests last night, and I've been looking at 3 of the arrest slips we were able to get. Now, 2 of the 3 involved vandalism. Keep in mind, this is video from last night. Both involved vandalism on Louisville Metro Department Corrections van. The reports say the 2 suspects were caught on camera busting out windows and throwing things at the jail, breaking a window on the building. The other arrest was a failure to disperse. That arrest involved an out-of-town protester from Owensboro. A lot of the vandalism last night happened right in front of police in riot gear, so why weren't they doing anything about it? Police had formed a line to face off with protesters, and their policy and training is to not overextend into a dangerous situation without appropriate support. We reached out to the mayor's office to find out if they had an estimate on the amount of damage done last night, but we are still waiting for a response. Meanwhile, tonight there is a curfew in effect from dusk till dawn, and clearly There are a lot of protesters out there who are not obeying the order. LMPD tells us that is a violation of the city's state of emergency order and violates a state ordinance, which is a Class B misdemeanor. For Focus, I'm John Charlton.
All right, John, very good. Thank you. Well, the family of Breonna Taylor says keep fighting for justice, but let's all do it peacefully. Tonight, Gabrigas has been talking with attorneys and Louisville advocates today and explains why they say this fight is bigger than just the former EMT. Tonight.
Yeah, Doug, we've been hearing the chants, seeing the signs, images circulating the internet, forcing people to pay attention and to say her name. But Doug, what we're seeing tonight in Louisville and across the U.S. is not just about Breonna Taylor. It's a reminder of the pent-up tension and frustration in a country that advocates say is far too familiar with police brutality.
White America really does need to take the time to understand why people are so upset.
As protesters smashed windows and graffitied public spaces, President and CEO of Louisville Urban League, Sadiqa Reynolds, has been watching and praying for the city's healing.
What has happened in our community is that people are tired, and you can't continue to press down, and not have something bubble up. And so here we are.
But as we watch parts of the country burn and flood with angry protesters, it's important, she says, to understand why there is pain and rage, because conflict has history.
This is about Breonna, yes, say her name. But there are so many other names that have not been said and we have not seen justice for.
Breonna Taylor's family attorney, Sam Aguiar, says while they ask people to keep it peaceful, they're frustrated and growing tired of waiting for answers.
We have very good information that concludes and confirms that this warrant was illegal. It was predicated upon lies. It was predicated upon false information. And frankly, every officer knew it.
Through all of this, Mayor Greg Fisher has asked the community to be patient because there's a process they have to follow while they investigate. But activist and senior pastor at Bates Memorial Baptist Church, Father Bruce Williams, says African Americans have been patient for a long time.
People are just trying to get heard. And here's the truth. It's going to get worse if people don't listen. If there's not policy changes, you're asking people to have confidence in a system that rarely works for them.
Now, I spoke with Louisville Black Lives Matter President Chanel Helm earlier, who tells me they had no affiliation with last night's violent protests. She even says she didn't recognize most of the people who were out there. Attorneys say Breonna Taylor's family didn't attend last night's demonstration, but in honor of Breonna's 27th birthday next weekend, they'll celebrate with a balloon release. Doug?
All right, thank you very much. Tonight, another family tonight asking for peace and giving perspective on the recent protests. Jerry Bugas, the stepfather of 19-year-old Michael Newby, who was shot and killed by LMPD in a case that happened in 2004. Louisville erupted in protest then, and many feared that riots would be next. The 16-year-old case, the last time Louisville saw this kind of civil unrest, you see the video from then. Although the family never did get the justice they hoped then and now, they are asking protesters to remember the names of the victims.
This is the young people's way now of getting attention from the police. It's almost like calling them out by doing this, and that's no way to handle it. Or peaceful, like Martin Luther King, getting your point across, getting everybody else to understand where we're coming from.
Jerry reminding many the famous words, violence only begets violence, calling for change from local community leaders to help with this problem. As you've been watching an ABC News special report right before this newscast, protests across the country. More states now activating their National Guards. We'll have an update on the unrest coming up.
Now, more than ever, facts matter. It takes focus to see the whole story.
You went above and beyond. The follow-up reports are wonderful.
To connect with people.
You helped me tremendously, and I appreciate that.
To make a difference.
You got results quickly. Magically, my claim went through, and I got paid my unemployment.
WHAS 11 Focus Investigations.
You all were definitely on my side.
What's up, Kentuckiana? The news you need emailed directly to you. Sign up now.
Drive forward and save with Commonwealth Dodge Ram. Drive a new Ram 1500 from just $259 a month. A new Ram Bighorn Crew Cab 4x4 with Hemi $329 a month. We're ready to get you ready to roll at Commonwealth Dodge Ram.
We're right on Preston and always right on the price.
What will history say about Mitch McConnell? Well, he spent most of his time making deals for himself, not so much for Kentucky. Mitch didn't have money when he went to Washington 35 years ago. Today, he's one of the richest guys up there. Rich Mitch has a nice ring to it. So what did Kentucky get in the bargain? Well, we're 40th in job opportunity, 45th in education, 43rd in health care. Getting the picture? After 35 years, Kentuckians are still waiting for the kinds of opportunities Mitch worked so hard to give himself. With another 6 years of Mitch McConnell, from the holler to the horse farm, we'll still be waiting. And Mitch, he'll just be richer. So what will history say about Mitch McConnell? The same thing many Kentuckians say now. Not a damn thing.
Paid for by the Lincoln Project, which is responsible for the content of this advertising.
At Commonwealth Dodge Ram, save up to $7,100 on Charger and Challenger. The new Journey GT, just $289 a month. And we're offering first responders, police, fire, and medical professionals an additional $500 rebate.
Remember, if it doesn't say Commonwealth, you paid too much.
We do want to check in the two separate protests that are underway in the city today. And at the moment, there are just two that we know of. We've been following them and the mayor confirming them. Let's go right to downtown Louisville, where Shane McAllister has been watching a dwindling crowd of protesters. Is it still quiet around you? Shay, it appears that it is quite the change.
Yeah, yeah, Doug, you don't hear much. What we actually are hearing and seeing behind me, though, is police officers, LMPD. We know that they are heading to 2nd and Broadway. They were just resting their legs for a minute, taking a minute just to sit down and take a deep breath. But they're getting back up, and they are heading down to 2nd and Broadway. They told us to help out some crews over there. I wanted to show you something else, though. So if you remember a couple minutes ago, Mayor Greg Fisher addressed why LMPD and other officers were busting up milk jugs. We actually saw that happen earlier today, and we didn't know what it was. Now we know it's because there was accelerants and fuel in some of these jugs, and here you go. You can see some of them. They're slit right down the side of it, and you can really see this one. It's slit right down the side. And then the milk just trailing off down the down the sidewalk. This is what we're seeing here in Jefferson Square Park. And you know what, Doug? This is all we're seeing of the protests here in Jefferson Square Park. Jesse Cohen, though, not so lucky. She's still seeing a lot of action. Jesse, tell us about it.
Well, right now we're at 2nd and Broadway, which we were just talking about, Shay, and we actually just saw 4 large trucks of the National Guard head this way on 2nd Street. Now, right now we're in that area where people have really dispersed. They've kind of gone in all different directions. I'm going to actually turn the camera. Philip's going to show you right now. We are seeing a large police presence making their way down Broadway. This is right where those trucks were, and now they're being replaced by LMPD vehicles. Now you can see people are throwing different things at those officers. Right down here, there have been multiple cars where people have been sitting in their windows and sitting on their roofs, and they've been yelling and chanting. I'm going to have Philip walk with me a little bit down this way. We're not exactly sure where those officers are walking to, but they do have a vehicle transport with them at this time. There's also another officer in the street. If you can turn this way, there's also a few more LMPD cars headed in our direction. We also saw a few more cars earlier from LMPD and from the National Guard head down to 2nd Street, so we're not exactly sure what is happening, but we do know that they're adding presence here. Doug.
All right, Jesse, thank you very much. We'll keep an eye on your location with you. We're going to join Jesse again in just a couple of minutes. But first, around the country, you're watching it unfold on ABC News. Right before this newscast, we are seeing protests like the one here in Louisville around the country and in different cities on much different scales tonight. Paulina Butska has been following some of those cities and has this report. Paulina?
Absolutely, Doug. Well, in more than 30 cities, we're seeing these protests, all calling for justice in the cases of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Ahmaud Arbery. Now, here are some of the bigger protests that we've been seeing over in New York, and that's the scene right there on top. We're seeing cop cars set on fire in Brooklyn neighborhoods, protesters taking over the Brooklyn Bridge and other major highways. 70 people have already been arrested. That second video from Washington, D.C., and what we're told is that Secret Service was seen clashing with protesters after windows and tires were slashed on their vehicles. Protesters were hit with pepper spray and thrown to the ground. The National Guard actually had to step in to help with this one. And on the bottom, that is footage from Philadelphia, and that's some of the worst scenes scene footage that we've seen so far today, 9 fires set to buildings and 14 have already been arrested after looting local businesses. The city has been under an 8 p.m. curfew after days of protests and riots. So far, 25 cities across 16 states now have curfews in place. We're seeing similar situations in Salt Lake City, Nashville, where the historic courthouse and city hall have been set on fire, and cities like Los Angeles, Chicago, Minnesota, Atlanta, Miami, and so many more are also participating in these protests. Doug?
Paulina, thank you very much. We do have TG Shuck here with us tonight, bringing us the updated First Alert Storm Team forecast. Going to be a chillier night tonight, huh?
Yeah, actually, Doug, nice start to the weekend. We talked about that lower humidity coming in, and if you were out and about today, you felt it. Quiet evening out there, Morgan & Morgan HD Camera Network. Mosquito Squad Camp still 69 at the International Airport, but down to 62 at Bowman Field. Checking temperatures around the rest of the area. You get outside the metro and already in the upper 50s and low 60s. I think most locations start low and mid 50s. So yes, a little bit cool, especially compared to what we have seen of late. Final day of May should be delightful tomorrow. Afternoon highs will actually probably be a couple of degrees cooler than what we had today as that area of high pressure off to the northwest settles in. Got a few high thin clouds drifting in, but the high is really going to take hold of our weather here in Kentucky and southern Indiana over the next few days. So waking up tomorrow morning, again, low mid 50s, but a nice warm up. I think probably a little bit more in the way of sunshine tomorrow. We had those few scattered clouds, didn't dampen the day at all today. And even with the full sun, low mid 50s will probably do it. You see the lack of rainfall, but the humidity's coming back as we head probably into Tuesday and Wednesday, because the high gives way off to the eastern seaboard and we see that return flow pickup. So nearly 80 on Monday, 86 on Tuesday. Again, as this front across the upper Midwest, it will eventually sink down later in the week and it will have moisture to feed off of. This should be a little bit higher, the model updating here late. But the point being is Tuesday and beyond, the humidity is definitely going to come back. It is going to feel much more summer-like. And you see here the long-range forecast as we go through the mid to late week. That front will settle south. So we will bring the chances for scattered showers and storms back into the forecast. I think most of these are going to be driven by the heating of the afternoon, kind of comparable to what we had a little bit earlier in the week. So just a brief break from the warmth and humidity. It'll be back soon enough. But enjoy tomorrow and Monday. They'll be nice, mostly clear. 56 here in the city outlying areas. Touch cooler tomorrow. Beautiful day, mostly sunny, really nice, 75. Check out 7-day forecast here. It will be literally 8 months to the day if we hit 90 degrees. The last time we hit it, October 3rd, when it was 96, of course, with that record heat in early October due to the drought last fall. And it will feel like summer with those scattered storms coming back into Thursday and Friday.
All right, a crowd that once numbered into the hundreds, now just a few heading into the from the Highlands to downtown Louisville. Jesse Cohen's been walking along with them, reporting on them. We'll check in with her and Shay McAllister downtown right after this.
The First Alert Storm Team forecast on WHAS 11 News is sponsored by Elite Heating and Air Conditioning and U of L Health.
Drive forward and save with Commonwealth Dodge Ram. Drive a new Ram 1500 from just $259 a month. A new Ram Bighorn Crew Cab 4x4 with Hemi $329 a month. We're ready to get you ready to roll at Commonwealth Dodge Ram.
We're right on Preston and always right on the price.
At Baptist Health, we've been caring for some of you virtually.
And that works well in a lot of cases.
But now, we want to welcome you back to our doctor's offices, hospitals, and clinics.
We're going above and beyond to keep you safe.
So you can feel good about scheduling that procedure.
Visiting your family doctor.
Or seeking care in an emergency.
At Baptist Health, we're all about safety, centered on you.
A night of violent protests in Louisville. We're going to go to Brooke Hash now. She is live downtown.
Just a few hours ago here at the intersection of 6th and Jefferson, we have video from our coverage and the police scanner sound from when these protests took a violent turn.
The violent demonstrations we've been showing you video of all morning started not long after the mayor's office released the 911 tape.
There is also some damage at the statue of King Louis. You can still smell and feel that tear gas.
Take a look over on this side. There's more damage.
Kentucky is facing challenges we've never seen before. We need leaders in Frankfort like Bill Furco to bring Kentucky back. A successful businessman, Bill Furco will support job-creating policies, jump-starting Kentucky's economy and bringing back Louisville and Oldham County's fair share of tax dollars. A family man active in charity work, Bill Furco will fight the drug epidemic, increasing addiction services, because prevention is the best strategy. Vote Bill Furco for State Senate on or before June 23rd.
At Commonwealth Dodge Ram, save up to $7,100 on Charger and Challenger. The new Journey GT, just $289 a month. And we're offering first responders, police, fire, and medical professionals an additional $500 rebate.
Remember, if it doesn't say Commonwealth, you paid too much.
Once again, the third night of protests here in Louisville. We started this day on edge with the call out of the National Guard, 350 members in town, and a much significantly smaller group than we have seen the past 2 days. Let's check in with Shay McAllister, latest on the protests in downtown Louisville. Shay, any movement there?
Well, Doug, here at Jefferson Square Park, what has been the heart of these protests, it's calm, it's quiet. In fact, what's left here is just a big cleanup job. Lots of trash all around the center circle here. We were just talking about some of the milk jugs and bottles and mason jars that police were destroying because they had learned that there was accelerants in them. You see some of that, but also you just see a lot of the garbage that has been left behind over today's protests, perhaps even some of the past few days. We know that they've been working hard to clean up overnight, and at least the first night they did it within hours. But the damage from last night to today was so much more extreme. And still, there was a heavy presence here. It wasn't like yesterday, but there was a heavy presence, and we know that this is not over yet. Jesse Cohen still following a very live and active scene. Jesse, what are you seeing?
Well, Shay, we moved a little bit further down from where we were at that 2nd and Broadway area, but the cars are still going crazy. People are still honking. A few different LMPD cruisers, along with the National Guard, have made their way down Broadway, closer to that Baxter area. But what I do want to show you is something that we're not too sure what it is. Take a few steps back with me here, Philip, is we are right near that Walgreens here on Broadway, and we smelled smoke, and we also saw a few different fire trucks rushing towards this. So I want to show you guys, just so we can see it right now, right behind this building here. I don't know if you can see the lights and some of the smoke, but there is smoke in the air, and there are 2 different fire trucks that seemed like National Guard that went to the back of that building. We don't have confirmation on what is on fire or what happened, but we did spot this on our way to looking at those vehicles. So we'll find out. If we find out anything in the near future, we'll be sure to let you know, Doug.
All right, Jesse, thank you very much. And Louisville Metro Safe now telling us that they believe they have a large crowd that has once again appeared in the Highlands at the Starbucks there, which would, of course, be there in the Baxter area. So the big question here remains tonight, where did the significant crowds, those huge crowds, go? Did they move on to other cities? We don't know yet. Was it the Kentucky National Guard presence combined with Kentucky State Police and Louisville Metro Police that sent a message? That is unclear. Will it stay peaceful overnight? We hope so. And of course, we will pray for that and our city and the people who are out there peacefully protesting tonight. For the most part, that has been the case. Thank you for joining us here. We'll be back in just a moment on the night team, so stay with us.
Wake up weekday mornings on WHAS 11.
Right now at Rally's, buy one Big Buford, get a second one free. It's like a movie with a sequel as good as the original. Except in this movie, the hero is made of perfectly seasoned 100% beef and stacked with the perfect toppings, including melty American cheese, all on a toasted bakery-style bun. Spoiler alert! The sequel is equally delicious and completely free. Buy one, get one. Big Bufords, only at Rally's. And now, for a limited time, get Rally's delivered for free.
Engines are restarting, park is shifting to drive. So we're offering 0% financing for 72 months and no payments for 120 days. Plus the freedom to shop and buy online. Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram will help you drive forward.
Or during the Memorial Day sales event, get 0.9% financing for 84 months, plus no monthly payments for 120 days on 2019 and 2020 Ram 1500 trucks.
What is leadership? And where are we seeing it in the middle of everything we're going through right now? I'm Amy McGrath, and just like when I served in combat, we can see our leaders on the front lines. Only this time it's in our states. Republican governors like Mike DeWine in Ohio, and Larry Hogan in Maryland, and Democrats like Andrew Cuomo in New York, and our own Governor Andy Beshear. They're all showing us what real leadership is, and political party has nothing to do with it. I lived this kind of leadership as a Marine. We didn't care about politics. We just wanted to serve our country. But Senator McConnell sees it differently. He doesn't want to pass what he calls blue state bailouts, even though Kentucky would get badly needed help too. It's why he said we should just declare bankruptcy. For Senator McConnell, it's always about politics. I approve this message because as your senator, for me, it'll always be about you.
Breakaway is the home of the $179 four-wheel brake job. Why have thousands of people trusted Breakaway? We don't try to sell you tires or other services. We only install quality parts. We have the best warranties in the industry. We are the brake experts in town. Plus, everyone wins on Wednesday, where you get 15% off every brake job.
Breakaway stands ready to serve your essential needs. We're here from 8 until the last car is taken at 4. Make an appointment or just walk in.
Kentuckiana businesses. Go to WHAS11.com to add your information and love local.
The protests mostly peaceful here tonight overall, with 10 arrests reported so far by the mayor, and they also confiscated weapons tonight, but so far no real confrontations. This is the scene from our crew that's been following that one group out of the Highlands to downtown. We also have a crew heading back to the Highlands at Bardstown and Baxter, where police and the National Guard have returned to disperse a crowd there. Again, the police have been aggressive tonight in asking the protesters to move on much earlier than they did the past 2 nights. And of course, with Mayor Greg Fisher's curfew in effect, they are trying to enforce that as well. All right, TG, take it through the evening here and tomorrow morning.
Yeah, tomorrow morning will be a little bit cool but pleasant, and a great finish to May. Tomorrow, mid-70s sunshine. Enjoy it, kicking off June in style, and then we will feel like summer by the middle of next week, maybe our first 90-degree temperature in 8 months.
All right, our wake-up team will have the latest on the overnight developments here. We're going to stay here for a while to keep our eye on things. If we need to, we'll get back on the air, but follow us also on WHAS11.com.
If you're worried about rent, we talked to an expert. Everything you need to know on Monday.
Wallach Garden Center has been your neighborhood garden destination since 1946. You can learn more about us and even search for plants at wallach.net, or just come in and find inspiration and a one-of-a-kind gardening experience. Wallach Garden Center. Let's grow home together.
Drive forward and save with Commonwealth Dodge Ram. Drive a new Ram 1500 from just $259 a month. A new Ram Bighorn Crew Cab 4x4 with Hemi $329 a month. We're ready to get you ready to roll at Commonwealth Dodge Ram.
We're right on Preston and always right on the price.
Bardstown, Kentucky is a small town in the heart of the Bluegrass State. The kind of town you can wander around in for a few hours and feel like you're back in time. But Bardstown, Kentucky also has secrets. Over 3 years, 5 tragedies, all of them unsolved. It all started in 2013, when a 33-year-old Bardstown police officer was found on a lonely stretch of highway, gunned down in the middle of the night. Just over a year later, a mother and her teenage daughter are brutally murdered inside their home. The next year, a 35-year-old mother disappears. And then, her grieving father is shot and killed. Are the Bardstown cases connected? Why is a killer still on the loose? And who has the key to unlock the string of murders in Bardstown? People in Bardstown want answers. Bardstown, a podcast from Vault Studios. Subscribe now.
The coronavirus is changing the way we live our lives, but seriously injured people still need help.
At Hughes & Coleman, we're committed to helping you no matter what.
So we've introduced a system where we can take care of your case almost completely electronically.
You don't even have to leave your home for us to start helping you. All you have to do is call.
The future may be uncertain, but we can get through it together.
If you're injured, you deserve justice. Hughes and Coleman, 800-800-4600. Call now.
Lily, help. Everyone in the house is online and I can't get enough bandwidth to video chat with my book club.
Try 1 gig internet with AT&T Fiber. You get more bandwidth and HBO Max included, so everyone stays entertained.
So I can just watch the show instead of reading the book?
Oh, well, I guess you could still read the subtitles.
Get entertainment-grade 1 gig internet with AT&T Fiber for $39.99 a month for a year, and now get HBO Max included. Limited availability in select areas. Call 1-877-ONLY-ATT.
The WHAS 11 First Alert Storm Team is on your side with the most accurate forecast. Download the WHAS 11 app for weather on the go.
Access Daily does everything a little differently.
That's all you need.
This is where Hollywood hangs out and hometowns take center stage.
You're going with me to the Frozen 2 premiere.
Access Daily.
Weekdays at 10 on WHAS 11.
At Commonwealth Dodge Ram, save up to $7,100 on Charger and Challenger. The new Journey GT, just $289 a month. And we're offering first responders, police, fire, and medical professionals an additional $500 rebate.
Remember, if it doesn't say Commonwealth, you paid too much.
Because you always have your mobile device with you, the best way to stay connected during breaking news is by using the WHAS 11 app. Don't have it yet? Download it today at the App Store or Google Play. The WHAS 11 app.
Assault on Precinct 3.
This is the 3rd precinct.
The thin blue line at the embattled cop's house. And exclusive. The cop's wife. She was a Mrs. Minnesota contestant. There he is on stage.
I'm Derek Chauvin.
Then she survived COVID-19. Now she says her neighbors are treating her like a leper.
One person did one of these.
And Hawaii 5, the honeymooners arrested in paradise for failing to quarantine.
They handcuffed you?
They're not the only ones. Plus, are animals taking over cars during the pandemic?
Gross. Climbing up into the car.
Their favorite place to hide, right here under the hood.
They're even raising their families there. Then, imagine heading down the highway and seeing this. Wait till you see what happens next. And Inside Edition special Super Bowl correspondent, Sailor Brinkley Cook.
Her private struggle with body dysmorphia.
Just having these moments of looking in the mirror and being disgusted with myself.
Now, Inside Edition Weekend.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us. Charges have been brought in connection with the death of George Floyd while being detained by police in Minneapolis. This comes after a night of violence at which protests broke out in at least a half a dozen cities, including in Minneapolis, where a police precinct was set on fire. Here's the latest.
It's the shocking scene inside a Minneapolis police precinct as rioters run amok.
This is the 3rd precinct right here. Fires are starting in multiple rooms.
Protesters trash everything in sight. The corridors fill with smoke, and you can hear ammunition exploding in the flames. The disturbing scenes were live streamed on social media during another night of fury in the wake of the choking death of 46-year-old George Floyd. You can see police cars racing from the precinct as cops evacuated after the mayor ordered them not to take a stand. Protesters lit fireworks in celebration. Derek Chauvin, the police officer who pressed his knee into Floyd's neck, was taken into custody today.
Former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin has been charged by the Hennepin County Attorney's Office with murder and with manslaughter.
The criminal complaint says the officer had his knee on Mr. Floyd's neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. 2 minutes and 53 seconds of this was after Mr. Floyd was non-responsive.
We got gunshots. We got gunshots, guys.
The looting and burning went on all night, and this is the neighborhood today. The smoldering ruins look like a war zone with the National Guard patrolling.
You mind telling me why I'm under arrest, sir?
CNN reporter Omar Jimenez and his crew were arrested live on television early today.
If you're just tuning in, you are watching our correspondent, Omar Jimenez, being arrested by state police.
He was later released and the governor apologized.
This is a very public apology to that team. It should not happen.
At 1 a.m., the president triggered outrage when he tweeted, "These thugs are dishonoring the memory of George Floyd. When the looting starts, the shooting starts." Twitter flagged the post for glorifying violence. He later posted, "Looting leads to shooting. I don't want this to happen, and that's what the expression means." First Lady Melania posted a very different message to America. "I've seen our citizens unify and take care of one another through COVID-19. We can't stop now." Protests spread across the nation. New York City, Columbus, and Denver, where an SUV plowed through a crowd and seemed to chase down one protester. Emotions are running high.
It's just so much pain. You get so tired.
I have not been this upset. I have not seen black people this upset in 20 years.
There is also a heavy police presence outside the home of the police officer, filmed with his knee to George Floyd's neck. Protesters have gathered there. We have more on the police officer and his wife, including some footage we uncovered of them on stage together at a Mrs. Minnesota competition.
Extraordinary images at the suburban home of embattled Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin. A formation of cops dressed in riot gear, locked in a tense standoff with furious protesters. The house where Chauvin lives with his family was also vandalized. The garage door was spray painted with the words, "Kill cops and pig." Chauvin was not home. He has not been seen since he sparked national outrage after he dug his knee into George Floyd's neck. I can breathe. We're learning more about 44-year-old Chauvin's personal life. His wife, Kelly, is a realtor and a refugee from Laos. And in 2018, she competed in the Mrs. Minnesota America pageant.
Kelly Chauvin, I'm representing Oakdale, Minnesota.
At one point, she was joined on stage by her husband.
I'm Derek Chauvin.
Carl Schway is the Mrs. Minnesota America pageant director.
I'm sure she's going through extraordinary trepidations right now.
In a profile for the local newspaper, Kelly was quoted as saying, "Under all that uniform, he's just a softie. He's such a gentleman. He still opens the door for me, still puts my coat on for me." But Chauvin has a checkered history with the department. 17 complaints, all of which were closed with no disciplinary action except for one, which generated 2 official reprimands. We're also learning that Chauvin and George Floyd worked at the same nightclub for many years. Maya Santamaria owned the club, which burned down in last night's disturbances.
What was Derek Chauvin like?
He was quick to draw his pepper spray. That was one thing I can tell you about him. He felt, I think, threatened enough when the crowds would come out, and if there were a fight or two, that he would right away pepper spray everybody. I can breathe.
Those protests around the country could have an unintended consequence. Officials are concerned that all these people in close proximity could result in a surge in COVID-19 cases. Here's Ann Mercogliano.
There are major concerns today that the huge crowds gathering to protest the death of George Floyd could spark a COVID-19 surge. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. You've seen the videos, large groups packed tightly together with few people, if any, wearing masks. The state health commissioner issued this warning today. People are moved to gather in solidarity and in protest, and we certainly honor and respect that right. But where we stand today with the state of COVID-19 spread in our community, we just want to encourage folks who gather to be mindful of the risk. Some COVID-19 survivors are reporting a troubling phenomenon. They say they're being treated like lepers.
One person did one of these?
Elizabeth Martucci and her son, MJ, contracted the virus on March 15th, but are now fully recovered. She celebrated by writing a big sign in chalk on her driveway on the Jersey Shore. She also wore a T-shirt.
I was like, oh, let me show everybody, like, I got through this.
But the reaction was not what she expected. She says some people shunned her.
There was a few people that were uncomfortable went in the other direction when I was coming around on my bike.
You're riding your bike down the street and somebody turns around and
Went
runs
into
or
their,
walks the other
went
way?
into their house, yeah. In the end, I don't fault anybody for being scared because there is a lot of conflicting information out there and people don't know what to believe.
And if you're thinking of running away from the realities of the pandemic and escaping to, say, Hawaii, forget about it. Officials there are serious about the quarantine, and some honeymooners found that out the hard way. Here's Jim Murray.
Sun-kissed beaches, paradise on earth. Who wouldn't want to spend time here in Hawaii while the